tonight's program is called Neighbor to Neighbor, and if you are not living off campus next fall, then you don't need to be here, so doors that way. My name is Brian Reese. I'm the Associate Director of Residential Life, and you've been getting probably a bunch of emails from me about the off-campus process over the last couple of months. So I'm excited to actually see you all, and I'm excited that you all will actually be living off campus next fall. And the goal of tonight is to really dive into what that looks like. So before we do that, I'm going to do some quick introductions, and maybe we'll start on that end.
Hi, I'm Ruth Ann Loveless, and I'm the mayor of Hamilton.
John Stacy, I'm the Hamilton Police Chief.
Chuck Fox, I'm a landlord.
Good evening, Dan Goff. I oversee campus safety, environmental health and safety, and emergency management on campus.
Gary Bridge, I work fire safety and emergency management.
I'm Stacy Millard. I'm the Director of Residential Life, and this is my son Oliver, who's joining us.
He's one of your off-campus neighbors.
That's right. You can say hi. You're on camera.
I'm just going to go through some quick goals for tonight so you kind of know what the purpose of our meeting is. One of them is to have a contact person on campus. So in a lot of ways that's me. I'm one of the primary people that you'll be in touch with about off-campus housing. But also all of these people are your partners in the off-campus living experience. So our goal is for you to get to know a little bit about them and also to learn a bit from their perspectives what it means to live off campus. We want to go through some of the expectations of what it means to live off campus in terms of being a Colgate student and also now being a Village of Hamilton resident. Maybe a little bit more, it feels a little bit more official that you're a resident of the Village of Hamilton. We'll also talk about what the differences between off-campus and on-campus living are, and then maybe talk about some of the common issues that students living off campus face. Up next, we've got Ruth Ann Loveless, Mayor of Hamilton, to talk about This is Hamilton.
This is Hamilton. I'm delighted to be here, and even though you folks have really been members of our community for 3 years, next year you'll be part of it in a very special way. I've lived in Hamilton over 45 years. I have 2 sons who moved back here after living in Washington, D.C., believe it or not. I have 3 grandchildren here. So Hamilton, I'm really connected to Hamilton in so many ways. And I consider it a very, very special place, as do most of the people who live here. And I hope you feel that way as well. Colgate is one of the reasons that Hamilton is such a very special place. The things that happen to Colgate, all that the school brings to the village, really enrich our lives in a way that's unlike many, many, many places. And believe it or not, the 700 students that are here also enrich our lives. And 98% of the people who live in Hamilton really appreciate you being part of the community, enjoy you being part of the community. And you know, I can't say that when you leave in May, they don't take a great sigh to get a little bit of a quiet time, but they're all very anxious when you come back in August. And I say for the 2% who don't feel that way, why do you live here? Because you know very much that Colgate is a part of our community and a very important part. I talked to some people who live next door to student housing and tried to get from them some tips on what are the pluses, what are the things that are not so good about student housing next to you. Because you have a very great impact in our neighborhoods. And our neighborhoods are filled with grandparents and young families and coaches and professors and administrative assistants, all sorts of the people who work and live here, and you are part of those neighborhoods. So it's important for you to keep that in mind. All the ones that I spoke with, the first thing that they said, the best thing that the students can do is introduce themselves to us when they move in. That goes a long way. They cut you a lot of slack if you show that you're interested in being there on their street, that you're interested in being their neighbors. It's a time when you should exchange contact information. If there are any problems on either side, you can be able to reach one another easily. Also, the thing to remember is you don't have buildings and grounds taking care of you anymore. You're in charge of garbage. You're in charge of shoveling the snow. And by the way, we had 50 more inches of snow this year than we normally have, just so you can hope that next year we go back to the old days. Taking care of the outside of your house is very, very important. If you don't take care of the garbage, you've got animals, you've got garbage flowing everywhere, it's not a good thing. So those students who really are conscientious about living in a neighborhood and taking care of their house are the ones who got really, really high marks. On the negative side, but they also, a couple also mentioned, if they can do something cool, like give out some Halloween candy or, acknowledge some of the events that are going on, that's also a real plus. I don't think the negatives will be a surprise for you at all. And the big negative is parties that are out of hand, where there's excessive drinking, where students are throwing garbage on their lawns. I had a couple of women say that there were times that they physically felt threatened because there were so many students, it was out of control, and so many who were drunk, and that was really, obviously, a scary thing. Luckily, this does not happen often. It's very, very rare, but it's something that has a big impact, not just on the street where you live, but the entire village, because everyone is aware of it. 98% of our students have no problems in the village at all. It's the 2% that cause the issues. And Chief Stassi will talk about it from, obviously, the police force and their perspective. My comment to you is, think about your home wherever you live, whether it be Minneapolis or Pittsburgh or Chicago or Sherburne. What you would do there, do here. What you wouldn't do there, don't do here. If you wouldn't act in a certain way in your neighborhood at home, it's pretty clear that you shouldn't act that way when you're in a neighborhood in Hamilton. It's a privilege, but it's also something that is fun for those of us who live in the village, and we look forward to getting to know you a little bit better and to maybe sharing some nice hellos or some comments or some thoughts along the way. My office, the village office, is down on the corner of Broad and Payne. It's a big red brick building, sort of catty corner from the inn. Many of us are there that can be helpful to you if need be. We hope you really have a great, great year, and we hope that we can all work together to make it a great, great year. Thank you.
Just a little bit about myself. I have over 21 and a half years on the job. 19 and a half of those were on a Douglas County, Syracuse. And what the mayor was saying is absolutely correct. The type of police work I did out there is night and day different than here. And from what I've seen in this year and just shy of a year and a half time out of this community, and between the interaction with the students and the community itself, is, I think, excellent. I had my oldest son goes to college in Alfred. My youngest son is going to college pretty soon. And so I kind of get where everybody here is coming from, and there isn't much that, my voice hasn't pulled, and I haven't pulled in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you usually deal with the police, it's a lot of times in a negative manner, whether it's a loud party or extremely highly intox or a fight or something off the rails. But I'm the type of person that I encourage input, questions, suggestions. I'm an open door. I have a lot of residents in the community so far that they do send me those emails about, hey, my neighbors are partying, they're partying on the roof. There's 300 of them on the balcony. They're jumping from roof to roof. They're partying so hard the rafters are shaking above my business, Alberries. Those are the complaints I get. And I do work with them. They are citizens here, they are citizens here too, and they're taxpayers, and if they make them complaints, we do have to address them. I tend to do my best to address them in a reasonable manner, not sometimes from where I come from manner. It's important for you guys to realize that when we're coming at your house at 4 o'clock in the morning because you decide on a Wednesday night to have a banger in there and the music's heard down the block, that ain't us. That's you doing it, And when we get appearance tickets for that kind of stuff, because this is the third time we've been there that night, don't be surprised. It's been, I think, very easy from my perspective and opinion, because this university and the students up here seem to be very easygoing and respectful, and I try to put that to my guys too. And if there is problems with my guys, I need to know those things. I can't address or fix anything unless I know them. I do know some student council members from different groups. We meet often and we exchange ideas and thoughts. Okay. So there isn't much more than I can say to that than, like she said, if you wouldn't do it in your own home, or you wouldn't like that next to your grandmother, odds are don't do it. Okay? Thank you.
So, thinking about that, and I think one of the themes that we're hearing is that generally Colgate students are really respectful and do the right thing and treat their homes the right way and treat their neighbors the right way and actually go out of the way, I think, to help their neighbors and to be good neighbors. But you don't want to be caught in that 2% like Mayor Lovelace said. So just keep that in mind as you're making decisions next year and thinking about that. And as you think about that, remember that you're always a Colgate student, and that student status gets transferred with you even off campus. And so we have an ongoing relationship with the Hamilton Police Department and with the other folks in the village. We have regular meetings with landlords, and so we have a pulse on what's going on in the community. We know what's going on with our students in the community. And we love it when we're hearing really good positive things, which for the most part is actually what we're hearing. And so this isn't a meeting where we're here to tell you don't do the wrong thing. We're just sort of attempting to reinforce the positive experience of living off campus. One thing that I want you to think about is developing a sense of citizenship as you move off campus. So you have neighbors who are possibly your professors, who are people that work here. There are lots of people that I know. I don't actually live in the village of Hamilton, but lots of people that I know that work here live right in the village. And you actually now have an interesting opportunity to start to develop a different kind of relationship with those people. Being someone's student or working for someone in an office is one thing, but living next to them and helping them out and developing a more personal relationship adds to the depth of the experience that you have at Colgate, but also I think will be helpful for you in your future as you kind of move down the line in your career and in your life. And it's also a great opportunity to get to know the village of Hamilton in a different way and to maybe become actually like a productive member of the village. And the other thing is that the Student Code of Conduct still applies off campus, but we're not your landlord really anymore, and so we're not watching what's happening, but your landlords will be aware of that and they'll notice those things, and you sort of have to work with them on any issues. So Mayor Lovelace talked about this, about D&G won't be there to fix things for you, so you have to get in touch with your landlord. I think Chuck will be talking about that in a few minutes. So what does it look like to talk to your landlord about issues that you're having and the kind of relationship, the positive kinds of relationships that you can build with landlords. I think that's all I have to say about that. You ready?
Yeah. Great. Good evening. First, congratulations on scoring off-campus privileges. All of us up here are genuinely interested in you having a successful off-campus experience. I am especially sincerely interested. My daughter is a rising sophomore at the University of Oregon, and a week and a half ago just signed her first off-campus lease. And it is my sincere hope that she's receiving similar guidance and available resources that you are tonight. So we are all a resource for you. And certainly don't hesitate to reach out to myself or any of us. Over the years, lots of students have reached out, both in the context of safety, security side of safety, as well as the life safety side. Whether it's a call I was pulled over. Is this going to translate to conduct on the university side? I was pulled over by the police department, or life safety or environmental safety subject areas like lead paint, mold remediation, fire safety. So we get a lot of those, and we're happy to provide guidance with those. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions in any of those safety areas to us. We work very closely together, so as Brian alluded to, we do share information to help and support you. And with more freedom becomes more responsibilities. So before you were responsible just for knowing the Code of Student Conduct, now you also have to know conduct out in the village. That includes the local ordinances. Those are very accessible and user-friendly on the Village of Hamilton website. Lots of good information there. You have inspections here. You guys know that the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control comes and inspects us in the fall, and then the Village of Hamilton Code Enforcement Officer Don Forth, who couldn't be here tonight, comes and inspects in the summer, and there's also other inspections internal to the university. Unfortunately for you guys, that doesn't change, but it's with mindset of support. Don Forth from the Village of Hamilton will come and do inspections in the rental properties as boarding houses, and he'll be looking for the exact same things with the exception of candles. The number one answer last night for why do you want to live off campus was so we can have candles. And respective to that, if you've worked in student res life as a student res life staff member, you've heard this before, but fire-related property loss and fire fatalities are the highest rate compared to any other occupancy classification for students in colleges and universities. And of that group, approximately 95% are students living off campus. So you are the highest risk of the highest risk for a potential fire in an off-campus house, and you should be aware of that and thoughtful about that. So Gary's going to talk about some ways you can do that, but the things that we're monitoring and managing for you here on the safety side, including, for example, with the fire safety and making sure that there's not cover detectors that reduce your timely response to egress from a building that is on fire, or your fire extinguishers or things of that nature. You need to maintain those in coordination and collaborative efforts with the landlord. So be aware of that. Again, we're a resource, and Gary will talk about some specifics that we can guide you on.
Since 2000, the Seton Hall fire, they started tracking fires at colleges and universities. There's actually been 126 deaths. 93% were in off-campus and Greek housing. The top 5 reasons or commonalities they all had was covered smoke detectors or disabled smoke detectors. So to know about your building, whether or not your detector works, first of all, but a smoke detector is the common thinking. It's not. So on the college, if the smoke detector goes off, it dials into campus safety, and campus safety responds, fire department responds. That may be the setup you have at your apartment. It may not be. It may be just a battery operated detector. So it just rings in your building. So you should know that if you have that type of setup, you have to call 911 to get the fire department to be there. The second is lack of sprinklers. I don't know if you guys realize this, but while you were at Colgate, you've always had a sprinkler in your bedroom. Chances are you probably won't have those in one of the apartments downtown. So you're losing a layer of protection there. Another commonality was smoking inside and alcohol. The last one, and this is important too because Dan just told you that Don will be doing the inspections, and this is one he particularly looks for, is upholstery on the furniture and under the eaves outside. So you can't have your furniture outside. He'll come by and he will cite you for that. What happens is people will go out and use them for smoking, put the butt in there, starts the couch on fire, starts the house on fire, and that was one commonality they found. Also, in the buildings you're going into, They're older buildings, a lot of them. The electricity in the buildings was not set up for the way we use electronics today. So if you're going to use extension cords, make sure they're the extension cords with the circuit breakers on them. So if they do overload, they fail and shut off instead of failing and starting a fire. CO detectors, if the house you're moving into has some kind of boiler, a furnace, make sure your CO detectors work too. When you're checking your fire smoke alarms, check the COs too. We had a close call in Erskine Falls just 2 months ago. One backfired and made the whole family sick. And lastly, I do this with my kids twice a year, is we have a fire safety plan. All right, how are we getting out? Where are we going? Where are we meeting? Not only one way out, what's our fastest way out, but what's our plan B? What if the stairs are on fire? How are you going to get out of there? So always have a plan B in your buildings.
And then I'll just add a few things about, in the brochures that I handed out, there are a few of the local ordinances that you might want to pay special attention to. So around open containers, so don't walk around with an open container.
Serving alcohol to minors.
Serving alcohol to minors. So if you serve alcohol to minors, you are responsible as the person that served alcohol to minors, and that's I mean, you can be arrested and fined up to I think a couple $1,000s. So just don't do it, because you don't want to be the person that's caught doing that and face the consequences for that. And also noise. So if your neighbors can hear your noise, you're too loud. That's basically the general gist of the local ordinance, I believe. So just keep noise to a minimum so that your neighbors can't hear you, and you'll be fine. And if you're going to be a little louder, talk to your neighbors beforehand, so that you can maybe even invite them over, so that they're in on the fun, I guess. And one thing that I think was said last night that I don't remember if it was early on or later on, but was that if you have something that's getting out of hand, it's better to call Hamilton Police and have you be the one asking to break up your party, as opposed to it getting totally out of hand and Hamilton Police coming and breaking up the party for
Yeah,
you.
with the invent, with social media and everything, you plan on having 5-6 people over before you know it turns into 300-400. And I mean, that happens. And have had some residents call and say, hey, I didn't mean for this to happen, can you help disperse it? We never penalize the person that actually called and asked for that. But it happens more than you think, with people kind of calling themselves. And that's kind of, to me, what I tell the guys, that's a responsible thing to do, as opposed to things getting completely out of control. And then, like you said, with the serving in minors, you get hit with underage stuff like that, where you're serving, it's unlawfully dealing with a child. That's what it's called. It's not just giving an underage person a beer. And those are either misdemeanors or felonies, and it can also mean jail time, not prison, but jail time. So that has happened a few times this past year, and we kind of sent the message that we're not tolerating that, and that hasn't happened since.
Next, we've got Chuck Fox, one of our landlords, who's going to talk to you about really living off campus.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We have 2 really nice apartments above Flower and Salt. We have 2 really nice houses on College Street. We have a really nice house on Lake Moraine, which occasionally will have Colgate students in. And so having heard all this sort of dire warnings, I just want you to know we've had wonderful students. I mean, our experience has been terrific. It's been fun for us to have them in the houses. We've gotten to know them. They've been responsible in the houses, and it's been a terrific relationship. And it's largely because of that we're able to say we have these really nice apartments and really nice houses, because the groups that have stayed there have enjoyed them and then taken care of them. So that's a good thing for us, and it's a good thing for you. You should be looking forward to having a really terrific senior year living off campus. You have, you've picked the friends that you want to live with. You picked out a place that you like and that you can kind of make your own. There's a chance that you'll have a single for the first time. And not for nothing, but you're paying a lot of money to live off campus. So you have a right to expect that this is going to be a good experience for you. But here's the thing. Your landlord wants you to have a good experience as well, or they should. Why? Because the chances are that if you're happy where you are, if you're having a good experience in your house or apartment, then you're taking good care of it because you want it to be nice for your group. The other thing, the landlord wants you to be talking to your underclass friends and say, hey, senior year, this is the place you're going to live. This is great. This is a terrific place. So your relationship with your landlord is not an adversarial one. This is not you against your landlord, but rather, if you have a good experience living off campus, everybody wins. And from your standpoint, you want that relationship with the landlord to be good because the chances are, after you graduate, either you or somebody in your group is going to find a job in Boston or New York or San Francisco where it's really hard to get an apartment, and they're going to require you to have a reference from someplace you lived before. And you're going to want to be able to call your landlord in Hamilton and say, Chuck, can I ask you to be a reference for this apartment? And you can tell the landlord there what a wonderful tenant I was when I lived with you. So again, it's a mutually beneficial relationship between you and your landlord. Now, there's some important things that you can do to be sure your experience is a good one. First, you want to find out early what the operating instructions are for your house or apartment. So, who's responsible for what? Setting up the utilities, trash removal, taking care of the lawn, snow removal. Who's responsible for these things? And again, ask your landlord to write them down just when you get there so that it's all clear. So, who's responsible for what? How does stuff work? The thermostat, the appliances, the smoke detectors, the CO2 detectors. How do these things work? Who do I contact to set up the utilities? If something breaks, if something doesn't work, in an emergency, what are the contact numbers? Who do I call? What can I do and what can't I do? Chances are that if you're living in a house with a yard, you can't have a barbecue in the backyard. You can't have a barbecue in the living room. You can have friends over for a party. You can't have 50 friends over for a party. And a lot of this is in your lease. Our leases say specifically that if you're going to have more than 10 people over the house, you have to have permission in advance from us to do that. So again, a lot of this information is in the lease. Read the lease. Understand the lease. It's a binding legal contract. And again, a lot of this information is there, but you need to understand what your responsibilities are. Because again, chances are your landlord has a deposit, and it may say in your lease, if you're in violation of any of the clauses in your lease, that they can keep your deposit. So again, it's important for you to understand that. Some of the, what can you do and what you can't do is common sense. And again, the kind of rule of thumb that has been thrown out here, if you don't do it at home, don't do it here. So again, when you're at home, if you don't take the sofa out of your living room and drag it out in the yard, don't do it here. That's kind of the guideline there. Again, a lot of that information, the operating instructions for where you're living, you'll find in your lease. And if you don't find it there, again, beginning of the year, just ask your landlord to write it all down so you have it. Secondly, and I'll be brief on this because it's been mentioned, but introduce yourself to your neighbors. Part of the sort of the fun and the responsibility of living off campus is, you're living in a residential neighborhood, unless you're living in one of the apartments downstairs. So it means, you have neighbors. So early on, get your group, get some cookies, find out who your neighbors are, go knock on their door, and you'll say, hey, we're going to be your neighbors here for the coming year. Here's our contact number. If you have any questions or problems, feel free to give us a call, and we're really looking forward to doing this. And again, it just makes it more fun for you. When you're walking to class and you see your neighbors, you wave and you say hi and call them by name. Again, it's a nicer relationship for you and for them. Here is a suggestion. You can take it for what you want. Invite your landlord to dinner. It won't kill you. Seriously, we invite them. You may shock them. They may not come. But here's the thing: we, in our properties, we make a point of inviting the students to our home. Maureen and I have them to our home. And partly it's fun for us. It's just a fun way for us to get to know, the folks who are living in the house. But it also, benefits everybody because, in doing that, it helps everybody to know that there are actual human beings on all sides of this conversation. So, during the year, if we need to call them or they need to call us, that's a much easier and more productive conversation if we kind of know each other a little bit. So again, you may not want to do that, but that kind of a relationship with your landlord will benefit you and will benefit them. So your off-campus living experience will be fun. You have a right to hold your landlord accountable for doing his or her part. There are some important things you can do to make that relationship a good one. And in the end, if your experience is a good one, everybody wins. Thanks.
So I want to go over some moving in best practices, some things that maybe you're used to kind of happening for you or being triggered for you by just the fact that you live on campus, and things that maybe you might want to take into your own hands as you move in next fall. So one thing that just sort of happens with your CL right now is a room condition report, or the RCR. That may or may not happen with your landlord. I've lived in places where I get a piece of paper and I have to fill it out and I give it to them, and I've lived in other places where I just move in. And so it's really good practice to just write down things like, okay, there's a crack in this part of the fridge, or there's scratches on the floor, so that when you move out, you have a document that you have shown your landlord to say, yeah, actually that crack was already there. I think most landlords aren't out to take your money for that sort of thing, but it's just a really useful practice to have, especially as you move into other cities where that aren't Hamilton, New York, where people are sometimes actually out to get you for your money. So I think it's just a really good practice to start now, and it's part of why we do that when you live on campus as well. I usually accompany that by just taking photos. So I just take photos of every room and of all the things that I'm noting down, so that I can then refer back to them. It's really a great idea to make if something does break, so let's say your stove stops working, to immediately call your landlord, let them know what's going on, agree on something, and then just write it down and send it to them. Say, we agreed that you would take care of this by this date, and that either it's my responsibility to take care of it because I broke it, or it's your responsibility to take care of it for X reason that we discussed over the phone. That way, you just have something to refer back to and to kind of hold each other accountable, as Chuck said. Another thing to think about is that there's no Colgate University student billing happening with your landlord. So if something does break and you are responsible for that, it's not going to get sent to a bill that then gets sent to your parents to take care of. It's sort of a more direct communication between you and your landlord. So if you break a window, for example, which could totally happen by accident, then you're the one sort of writing that check directly to the landlord. So just something to keep in mind as you're taking care of your home and making sure that you're keeping things in good condition. Another thing to think about is renter's insurance. So a lot of our students already have that while living on campus, so it's a great practice to just continue that as you move off campus. Your parents might have a condition in their homeowner's insurance that actually covers your off-campus apartment, so check in with them to see if you even need to purchase renter's insurance. But if you do need to purchase it, it's just a really great thing to have in case of the many different kinds of emergencies that renter's insurance covers, so that you're not sort of left in a lurch to try to pay for those things. And it's generally pretty affordable on a monthly basis, anywhere from like $10 to $20 a month. Let's see, and then I think the last thing around that I wanted to share was that one thing that some of our students struggle with a little bit is that they're used to having having really easy access to a support network. So they have a CL that lives right down the hall, or they're living right on campus next to all of the various support services that we have available. Campus safety might be right down the street. It can feel a little bit overwhelming, I think, to some students to not have that right there. So just know that we're only a phone call away or an email away if you have a question or want to work through something. A lot of our students continue to have roommate conflicts or sort of like, I don't want to share a kitchen, but I I still live with one other person, so maybe that other person isn't cleaning their dishes, and how do I talk to them about that and make sure that we're holding each other accountable in a way that's positive and healthy, and that we continue to have a good experience throughout our year instead of getting annoyed at each other all the time. So we continue to be a resource for that, and we're just a phone call or an email away. We can sit down with you and talk through what that looks like, or even bring both of you in if you're having a kitchen conflict and sit you down and come up with a plan for making sure that that gets resolved.